In this lecture, we are talking about the body wall of Pheretima posthuma. So students, the body wall is basically divided into four major layers. The very first layer of the body wall is the cuticle. So this is the very first layer over the body, and it is secreted by the earthworm itself for its protection and lubrication. So this is the outermost layer. The second layer is the epidermis. So it is present below the cuticle up to the basement membrane. The third membrane is the basement membrane over which the epidermis is resting upon. And the third, you can say, the layer is of the muscles. Now it is containing the circular muscles as well as the longitudinal muscles. And the last layer is the lower one, it is the parietal peritoneum. So these are the four basic layers: the cuticle, the epidermis, the muscular layer, and the parietal peritoneum. These are the layers of the body wall of the earthworm. Now if we talk first of all about the cuticle, it is the outermost layer. It is somewhat elastic in nature, and it can change its color with the position. So it is also said to be as the iridescent layer of earthworm. So iridescent is a layer which can change its color with the change in the position, and it is composed of collagen fibers, and it has got numerous pores of gland cells. So you can very well see on the top we have written the openings of the mucous gland cells. So these are the pores which are present in the cuticle. So it is secreted by the lower layer of colored cells, which is the epidermis. So epidermis, it secretes the cuticle. Now we are taking up the second layer, and it is the epidermis. So it spans from here to here. So this is the epidermal layer, and it contains 5 types of cells. The very first type of cell is the supporting cell. So these are columnar cells, these are long, they are broad. So they are nucleated cells, and they are supporting the whole of the epidermis. The second type of cells are the glandular cells, which are secreting something. So in these gland cells, we have got 3 types of glandular cells. The very first type is the mucous gland cells. These are secreting mucus, and these are present all over the body. Second are the albumin gland cells, and they are present only in the anterior part, and they are secreting the albumin. The third type of glandular cells are the ootheca forming cells. So these are only and only present in the segment number 14th, 15th, and 16th. So that is the clitellum. So as we have discussed earlier, that the clitellum is secreting an egg case, and that egg case is secreted with the help of these ootheca forming cells, which are the third type of gland cells. Now, first we discussed about the supporting cells, then we have these glandular cells of 3 types. Now we have the third type. These are the basal cells. Now these are present at the base of the supporting cells. So here in the diagram you can see that they are present at the base. So they are conical cells, and they are undifferentiated cells. So they can form the supporting or the glandular cell types. So basal cells are very, very important as they can form any other type of the cell in the epidermis. Now the next type of cells present in the epidermis are the sensory cells. So they are not shown over here in this diagram, and they occur singly or in groups, and they are sensitive to the external stimuli. So these are the sensory cells which are present in the epidermis. And next type of the cells, the fifth type of cell in the epidermis, they are the seta forming cells. So these cells, they are present in the satigerous sacs, which are secreting the setae. So with this we finish with the epidermal part of the body wall. And now we have the musculature. This is the third layer of the body wall, and it is divided into two major layers. The outer layer is of the circular muscles and the inner layer is of the longitudinal muscles. So this is a very important thing to note, that whenever the circular muscles they contract, they will make the body thin and long, and whenever the longitudinal muscles they contract, they will make the body of the earthworm thick and short. So that is the function of the circular and the longitudinal muscles. And beneath this muscular layer, we have got the fourth layer, which is the parietal peritoneum, and this is the lowermost layer of the body wall, and this is a single layer, and it forms the outer boundary of the coelom. So it is covering whole of the coelom from inside. So students, from this aspect we have completed the structure of the whole body wall of the earthworm. Now below the parietal peritoneum, now here on the lower side we have got the coelomic cavity. So this is the empty space which is present inside the earthworm, and this coelomic cavity has got a coelomic fluid, and this coelomic fluid has got many types of cells. The first type of cell can be phagocytes, so these can take out other cells. Second type is the mucocytes, which are elongated cells, and they have got fan-like processes. So these cells are present here in the coelomic fluid. So the third type of cell can be the circular nucleated cells. So these are also present in the coelomic fluid. And the fourth type of the cells which are present in this fluid, they are the chloragogen cells. So they are very, very important cells in earthworm, and they are present in the coelomic fluid. They are also called as the yellow cells, and they are star-shaped cells. And why they are called as yellow cells? Because they give out a deep yellow color with iodine. So they are excretory in function. So I'll be taking up these chloragogen cells in the next part of the lecture, that what are chloragogen cells, what are the functions of these cells. So next we have got the lymph glands. So these are the paired structures, and they start from the 26th segment onwards, and they contain phagocytes which ingest the foreign particles. So these lymph glands, they are defensive in nature. So students, here I must give you something about the chloragogen cells which are present in the coelom. Now first of all, we'll be taking one earthworm. Suppose this is the earthworm, and which is lying over here, and if we cut it down, what is present inside this earthworm? There is an empty space, and that is called as the coelomic cavity. And this cavity is independently present in each of these segments, because these segments are separated by septa. So that means that all the segments, they are divided from inside. So every septum, every segment has got its own coelomic cavity or its own coelomic fluid. So in this coelomic fluid, these cells, which are called as the chloragogen cells, they are present. So now we are talking about these chloragogen cells. These cells, they are also called as the yellow cells, because they are giving a yellow color with iodine. So these cells are present in the coelomic fluid of the earthworm. The very first function of the chloragogen cells is the storage of food. So this is a very important function. So they can store food. Number two, distribution of food. So they are also distributing the food to all the body part. Now, how they are distributing these uh, food materials, or you can say the stored food? The chloragogen cells, they divide to form a special type of cells which are called as eliocytes. It is Eleocytes. Now these eliocytes, they can move inside a single segment, and they have the stored food, and now these cells can distribute this food in whole of the segment anywhere. So the chloragogen cells, when they store food, they divide to form the eliocytes. Now these eliocytes can move freely in the coelomic fluid to distribute the food. Now the next function of these cells is the deamination. That means that proteins which are present in the cells, they are deaminated, giving out the ammonia. So as the name suggests, deamination, that is removal of the ammonia, and this ammonia is converted into urea in the cells. So that is the deamination. The fourth function of these cells is the removal of silicates. So as you know that these earthworms, they are taking up a huge amounts of sand in their food. So these chloragogen cells, they are also helping in taking out these silicates out of the earthworm. So they can be stored in these cells. The silicates are stored in chloragogen cells, and they can go out from the dorsal pores, and that is a kind of excretion through chloragogen cells. Now next function is hemoglobin synthesis. So some scientists, they think that the hemoglobin protein or the pigment which is present in the blood of earthworm is synthesized by chloragogen cells. Next function is the disposal of water. So this is also with the help of excretion. Now what happens that the chloragogen cells, they become full of water, they store it, and they go out by the dorsal pores which are present on the body. So they are taking out the extra water whenever necessary. So these are some of the functions of the chloragogen cells. So you can get a particular question of these cells because of their importance. And they are so important that they are equivalent to a liver of a vertebrate animal. So that was about the chloragogen cells.